So you were recently appointed at Boston University. I understand you're taking the an anti-racist institution or institute that you had at American University over to Boston University. So that's an exciting step for you. I'm wondering what are the aims of that institute there at Boston University? What are your hopes for embedding your work in a system like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're building the Boston University Center for Anti-Racist Research. And I think first and foremost, the concept of anti-racist research, we feel that there's just too much racist research, meaning research that's trying to figure out what's wrong with Black people or Latinx people or Native people or a particular racial group of people and their culture and their way of life. And, all of that, there's nothing wrong with any racial group of people, despite all of our differences. And so instead, we wanted to build a center focused on anti-racist research, that instead of asking what's wrong with people, we ask what's wrong with policies, what's wrong with power, what's wrong with systems and structures and institutions. And really, in order to really, we have so many racial disparities and inequities. And in order to really fully understand the policy causes, the narrative and ideological causes, we really have to be able to conduct research. We have to figure it out, right? And we need to be able to organize many different kinds of researchers. So to give an example, to really understand why Black people are dying at higher rates from COVID-19, we can't just bring in researchers who study, employment discrimination. We can't just bring in researchers who study environmental racism. We can't just bring in we have to bring in all these different types of researchers to answer a single sort of research question. And so we want to really build those teams. And we also want to build a mechanism to really be able to track racial data, to really understand the problems. And then we also hope to essentially encourage scholars at BU and really around the country to ensure that their scholarship on racism is part of the larger conversation, is that Americans are debating and having discussions about race and racism that are rooted in evidence and data and scholarship that is being produced by scholars.
I've noticed it's going to be interdisciplinary in nature. So you're hoping to work with social workers, artists. Tell me a little bit about that idea of working across disciplines.
Yeah, so to give an example, we want to build what we're calling research and policy teams. And so to give an example, and this would be a team that would be problem centered. In other words, they would really seek to address, a racial problem. And so whether that problem is the potential eviction crisis that's coming potentially as a result of COVID-19, one of our researchers would devise a research and policy team that would not only sort of study that problem, the researchers would really try to figure out the causes of the problem, policy-wise and otherwise, but we would also, as part of that research and policy team, have a policy expert who could take that research and develop policy correctives. As part of that team, we would have a journalist and even an artist who could do the narrative work around the problem and even the solution. And even part of that team, we would have an advocate who could literally design a campaign that could get those corrective policies instituted based on those narratives.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about working in institutions. I mean, you're obviously a university professor. I myself work in post-secondary education. Do you feel hopeful about higher education as a site for change? Can it be a catalyst and a part of this overall movement towards change? It's very difficult sometimes working in systems. They're large. They're slow to pivot. Many of them are rooted in histories of anti-Black racism and slavery. So just tell me a little bit about you personally working in institutions with the kinds of hopes and energies that you're putting into your work?
Well, I mean, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I mean, there was a time in which, in my career, when I was wondering whether I should continue working in institutions, at a university. But at the same time, I know that there are just so many incredible researchers, here at BU or at other universities who are doing incredible anti-racist research. But the issue, I think, is that, and this is what I really want to help those researchers do, is some researchers are not in conversation with each other, even though they're working on similar topics, even though they could really be building off of each other's work. And then you also have scholars are not trained in how to translate their work for the public. We're not trained in how to translate our research into policy change. We're trained in doing our research, and we do it well. And so I want to create a higher education that's much more applied. And I think the way that it can be applied is not asking a researcher to become a journalist, not asking a researcher to become an artist or a policy expert or an advocate. It's asking them to do research and then connect them to those folks and then have them team up with those folks and create sort of pipelines, or I should say connections, that allow their research to then almost go through an assembly line that then leads to change.